Noble Knights are so much fun. Everyone is going to have fun. I'm going to Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Link Summon. I will combo off for 10 minutes. Your turn will be skipped. It'll be fun! The history of the Noble Knight cards is captivating. Like a school bus veering off a cliff, you just can't look away. They were an attempt to make two outdated mechanics good, but they were convoluted, over-designed, and all trying to be the star of the deck, all doing the same thing. Refusing to learn, the designers repeatedly abandoned the existing strategies until they burned through the entire lore of King Arthur and still hadn't made a coherent deck. So the eventual French reboot just threw out everything and started from scratch. There are no round tables in Ba Sing Se. Or are there? Join me as we journey deep down the iceberg of Noble Knight strategies, of techs you didn't know existed, and effects you didn't realize aren't once per turn? Even if you've never seen this deck before, I'll get you caught up. Or if you don't even play Yu-Gi-Oh! Hi? Come back next month and I'll have another Pokemon fashion review for you. If there's a specific strategy you're interested in, this video has chapters, so you can skip ahead to that. Now, most people jumped ship when Assault got banned, but I say good riddance. This card had infinite possibilities, but only ever chose villainy. Made the deck way too open-ended, I never felt like I was making the optimal plays. The build I'll be focusing on uses the new fighting Flame Swordsman, does not use Snake Eyes, and ain't touching SP Little Knight. You can build this deck for under $60, and it's good. It's really good. I would probably ditch my Crystal Beast for this, if not for, well, you know. Activate the rainbow! Taste the rainbow! I'm all about that rainbow life! For those new to the crew, the first goal is to speedrun to the fantastic Angelica, typically with a level 1 tuner or something which becomes a level 1 tuner. She takes you to the Noble Arms Museum, where you can buy a ticket to see a Noble Arms exhibit. These ceremonial swords break upon use, functioning more like normal spell cards, attempt to equip or put a ring on Angelica, and she vanishes, rescued by the biblically inaccurate Captain Roland and leaving another knight injured in the graveyard. The bigger knights can equip each turn from the graveyard to protect their allies, and the museum can summon them up. Climb to their old boss, the Emperor Charles, who offers removal and gathers equipment. Equip Roland, and he can ascend to the new and improved Emperor Charles the Great. Charles Grande equips Charles Jr., gaining his effects and adding some spell and trap negation. Every card which supports Infernoble Knights actually supports all Fire Warriors, so you can easily add Immortal Phoenix Gearfried to the mix for another negate and an extremely threatening battle phase. Plus, Roland here equips as a quick effect, so you can trigger the Charlie Pop anytime. This is the basic board. By expanding on these interactions, we can add a second Charles Grande, a third spell negation, some flippy traps, and more? Here's the part where I play out a hand to show you how this all looks in action, and then I'll explain how we got here. Opening hand, wow, that's a lot of spells. I would start with Fighting Flame Sword to search the deck for Fighting Flame Swordsman. You can also do that during the draw phase if you're afraid of Droll. I'll normal summon him, and that's going to search for one of our trap cards, so even if we get stopped here, we've still got at least 1 point of disruption. Easy equip here, Durandal, break that to search for Infernoble Knight Renault, who can be summoned immediately, and he'll grab that Durandal back. From here, we can Synchro Summon Angelica. This triggers Fighting Flame Swordsman, which will send Salamander to the graveyard. Angelica will also search for another Noble Arms Museum, and then because Salamander was sent to the graveyard, we get to search for another trap. So even if we have nothing else for the whole turn here, 2 traps! That's pretty darn good, and that took pretty much no commitment. Also, Salamander from the graveyard can now activate its effect, attempt to target Angelica. She will yeet, replacing herself with Roland, and dumping Ogier. I gotta use Noble Arms Museum here. I'm gonna have it search for Almace, then use Ogier's effect from the graveyard to equip, use the Noble Arms Museum to then move him up. When Ogier is summoned, we can use him to send Immortal Phoenix Gearfried to the graveyard. That's another piece of our end board. I'll equip Almace here so that even if the opponent drops a rock on us, this is the 5th summon, and because the equipped monster was sent to the graveyard, Almace will grab Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. Then Captain Roland can equip to Charles. I'll banish an equip spell to summon Gearfried, and just slap this on him to make sure that he stays equipped at all times. Next, because Charles is equipped, we can upgrade him to Charles Grande and equip Charles Jr. At this point, we can play a new Noble Arms Museum. It is not once per turn. I can now search for another Noble Arms card, such as another field spell, Camelot, the Realm of Noble Knights, Noble Arms, and that means I can now use the summon effect again. Get another Charles. At this point, I don't have another equip spell, oh no, but I can use Camelot, it'll banish itself for the turn, set the Noble Knights of the Round Table field spell, and I get to search for an equip card, so I'll just grab... just for the sake of getting this example over with, I'm going to pretend I don't have Reinforcement of the Army, so I'm just going to search out any old random Noble Arms card, use that as an excuse to ascend Charles, because these are not once per turn, I'll go into that. Charles Grande equips another Charles Jr., use one of the Charles cards to destroy a card on the field, just so that I can free up a spell trap zone, so I can set both of my traps, proceed to the end phase where Angelica returns, and because I have at least 3 Noble Knights, the Round Table can send one to the graveyard. During the end phase of the turn in which Roland is sent to the graveyard, he can search for an equip spell. Then I will use Charles the Great to equip a spell from my hand or my graveyard, and a knight from the deck. So with all of this together, I've got 3 spell negates, a monster negate targeting protection. On the opponent's turn, Camelot returns to give protection from destruction, and I've got 2 traps that can flip the opponent's monsters down, summon Flame Swordsman, and on the next turn, we're gonna upgrade. Yeah, so you probably win, and the bulk of that came off of the Fighting Flame Swordsman and any way to get to Renault. Or even Oliver. There will be times when you have completed your setup and you have Camelot left over, and maybe at some point in your turn you came across Noble Knight Turpin. This guy's able to summon himself from the hand or graveyard, no cost. Let's say you replace your field spell, you use Camelot, it'll banish for the rest of the turn. You get Round Table, and you can summon Artorigus. You're going to have 2 level 4 monsters left over, so you can summon one of the Noble Knight Kings for good removal and some passive defense. If you want more active defense and you're locked into warriors, the only option is Heroic Champion Gandiva, who is at least giving you a little bit of destruction. At the end of the turn, Angelica comes back, and you can use the Flame Sword trap on your opponent's turn, summon a Fusion. Now you've got Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Link. While I am grateful that Isolde's band has greatly streamlined this deck, she was also the last excuse to justify running any of the old British Knights, even in a casual build. I thought I'd miss you, Mordred, but France is so much better. Seriously, nothing the British Knights do can outweigh Angelica's consistency and Great's protection. These don't actually have Noble Knight in their names, so they cannot be used alongside cards like Kustinen, which lock you into Noble Knights. You must pick a side, and there's no contest. Even if I do miss Ivan and his dog. It's fine, other fire warriors have way better normal summons anyway. Even the old British arms have become redundant in their protection and their potential recursion. I was using Isolde and Boars to get all of these into the graveyard, then I would summon the king, get a few of them back, use Excalibur to rank up to the Sacred King, grab another sword, attach this, so these would boost him to 4,000 points, this would give him direct attacks, this would give him 2 attacks, so attack for 8,000 per game. It was a silly gimmick, but definitely too slow for today's Yu-Gi-Oh! Being a one-turn game. Something that even I didn't catch for a while is that the museum is not once per turn, so if you have a second copy, you can search again and summon again, and search again and summon again. There's no limit on Charles the Great either. His weird summoning condition, copying Charles Jr., or even the negation. Even better, after that equip effect resolves, you don't need to keep the Synchro equipped anymore. Link Charles will keep the copied abilities forever. So after you summon Chariana Grande, if you can spare a museum summon and another equip, you can go double Char, and they can both use their negation. Or if you have another level 1 tuner around, you can get that extra negate through good old Baron de Fleur, who is now available even to duelists on a budget. Wait, what's that? Baron de Fleur is now Baron de Forbidden? Just in time for Rarity Collection to clear off the shelves, huh? This is a fun combo deck to play Solitaire, which is good because you're going to need to learn how to plan ahead if you want to get both Charles and Gearfried on every board. For example, if you didn't start by summoning Ogier, then you should dump him off of Angelica. Also, if he doesn't listen to you, dump him. You deserve someone who can hold a conversation with you. He's great here because he can serve as the level 4 non-tuner for climbing up to Charles, and he'll also dump something anyway, so there's no reason not to go through Ogier. Second, be mindful of how many equipped spells and effects you've got, because you'll need them for triggering Angelica, summoning with the museum, and leveling up to Charles and Charles the Great. You'll also need to keep one attached to Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, in case somebody tries to drop a rock on you. But you know me, I don't stop there. We've still got 30 other cards in the deck we haven't summoned or equipped yet. Tell me it recorded. Oh no. Don't tell me it didn't record again. We're gonna talk a lot about the things you can do with Noble Knight Roland. These days I see him being used when there's a spare Durandal search so that he can trigger Angelica's Yeet, getting him into the graveyard so that at the end of the turn he searches for Angelic Ring, which Charles will equip from the hand. It gives you another spell negate. We'll talk about the ring, but first we have to get Roland into the graveyard. And Durandal searches are pretty valuable. The spirit of the original deck lives on in Camelot, realm of noble knights and noble arms. It is one heck of a fixer. If you need an equip spell or another museum, this will grab it. Or if you need the level 4 non-tuner for Angelica, it can also summon Old Artie. Or he can just be summoned to equip Durandal to, so you can search without wasting your normal summon. As a Noble Arms card itself, it can be searched by the museum, so you can just tag your field spells in and out, because remember, the museum is not once per turn. Now, after using its effect, Camelot banishes itself for the turn and replaces itself with Noble Knights of the Round Table. Most relevant is that this is the efficient way to dump Roland, and therefore get the Angelic Ring. Plus, this is totally free. If you were using the museum to search for a Noble Arms, you've got nothing to lose by going through Camelot to get that sword and a table. 'Tis a silly place. And then, at the start of the opponent's turn, Camelot comes back and provides some protection. With this many effects in one card, it certainly lives up to its name. Unlike the original Noble Knights, who spent 100 words doing nothing! So keep Camelot in mind as we go through these next combos. Super searchable fixer, near guaranteed Roland search. Don't underestimate this card. Plus, it's fun. You must use it. You must have fun! We will come back to Roland for the final segment. The new Flame Swordsman cards are perfect for Noble Knights as a fellow set of level 4 and 5 Fire Warriors, plus equipment, and a quick spell searcher. You may have figured at first glance that the Flame Swords are for OTKs, and fighting Flame Swordsman is Joey Wheeler. Simply normal summon Joey to search for Flame Swords Realm, which will trade a monster for the original Flame Swordsman. This triggers Joey's second effect to send Salamandra, triggering Salamandra's effect to search for fusion. This guy gets you 2 searches, one when he enters play and again when he leaves. Use Salamandra Fusion to evolve into the ultimate Flame Swordsman, pop an opposing monster for 500 damage, equip the dragon from the graveyard for 700 attack, and swing to double that score to 7,000. Or 9,000 if you can summon another warrior. And if you don't need to go through this to get to Salamandra Fusion, then the Fighting Flame Swordsman can instead send Fighting Flame Dragon, which will give him 2 attacks. So that's like up to 18,000 damage, in case you need to win a tag duel in one hit. A 1-card OTK machine with no locks and spare byproducts. That'll help you play through Disruption too. Now people think this is underwhelming though, because on the opponent's turn, the ultimate swordsman is only worth a quick pop. But just as Joey can search for 2 aggressive combo pieces, he can also search for 2 traps. He gets Swords Dance, and Salamandra gets With Chain. This flips a monster down and cheats out a little fusion, and this flips and then equips, and if I fits, I sits. Here's an explainer of what formed the base of that example hand I played out. You summon the Fighting Flame Swordsman, and he can search for 1 trap. Use Durandal, and that can get you to Renault, who can be summoned immediately and get that Durandal back. You now have the materials for Angelica, who is going to search for the Noble Arms Museum. At the same time, sending the Flame Swordsman to the graveyard sends Salamandra, which will search for another trap. And this is happening at the same time, so if you can't afford something to get ashed, you can chain block here. Then, Salamandra in the graveyard also functions like a knight. It can attempt to equip itself to something, and that gives you a free trigger for Angelica's Yeet. You can save the Durandal for when you make Charles and Gearfried. And hey, you've got the museum, you've got another search here, you've got Ogier, move him up, send this. You've got the whole play, all of your Infernoble Knights stuff, plus 2 more traps. Even if your monsters all get wiped out, you can keep on disrupting. And this has a fusing effect, so you're pretty much guaranteed to upgrade into the ultimate Flame Swordsman on the next turn. This engine is so efficient and so versatile, and it slots right into what the deck was already doing. This is my engine of choice, but you've seen how much of this lecture remains. You know we're going deeper. I wrote this section before realizing that the museum's effects are unlimited, but I'm using it anyway! As you see, there are 2 trap cards that Angelica can search for instead of the museum. They're pointless in my build because I've got the Flame Swords for better traps, and Camelot ensures that spare museums are never useless, but you might have some ideas for them. Let's collaborate. Horn of Oliphant is simple spot removal, or it can trade Roland for 3 knights from the deck. The best combo I've found to use with this is that during the end phase, you use the table's third effect to send Roland from the deck to the graveyard. Roland searches for Richard. If you've got 6 knights, you can then summon Richard, who will summon Roland. Okay, so now you've got Roland all set up, ready to toot his horn. You can trade him for 3 more knights from the deck, but none of them do anything. I mean, Moji can get you a draw when he hits the graveyard, but this is a lot of effort for a passive defense in a deck that already makes unbreakable boards and probably won't have enough zones for this stuff anyway. We could make this interesting with ways to synchro summon during the opponent's turn, but I don't see any way that we can do that, and we're locked into warriors. It feels like Noble Knights have major potential here, but nothing they can do with it. But maybe you have some ideas to add to this. Angelica's other trap is the Continuing Epic of Charles, which, fun fact, is the only card which specifically supports Infernoble Knights. If you have a spare sword in hand, it'll summon a Frenchie from the deck who will just sit there doing nothing, and provide an extra equip to Charles, which again you won't need because Captain Roland exists. Why does this card exist? I will show you why. Remember this when we reach the very bottom of the iceberg. So you've seen the main thing we do with the table. During the end phase, it can send Roland to the graveyard, and then Roland can search your deck for any equip spell or fire warrior. Albeit with the caveat that this is during your end phase, so your Renaults and Snatch Steels will have to wait. You could also send Moji, who recycles and maybe draws Nash Blossom if you're lucky, but no, you're gonna want to send the Roland. Because if you can combine Angelic Ring with Charles, you can get it into play immediately during that end phase. It'll negate an opposing spell at resolution, even if that spell is super polymerization. It's not that hard to reach the table's 6 effect because Noble Knights of the Round Table counts itself as a Noble Knight card. You might simply slap down a chump blocker, or if you don't have anything to summon and you don't need or want the ring, you can use Roland to search for someone to summon. Or we can get really weird here. And we can also get really, really tired. I don't know if you can hear the turkey mating calls outside. That's not like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Analogy or anything, that's just literally turkeys. I wondered if Roland could search for anything else that could make itself useful from the hand. You've basically got 2 options. Rescue Ace Impulse can be used to summon Rescue Ace Turbulence from the deck. In a dedicated Rescue Ace build, this is the one that sets 4 freaking cards, but it also has a passive defense, it's got big stats. However, it is also a total brick if you get it in your hand. Alternatively, if you're able to keep any other fire warrior in play, including the Angelica who yeets and then comes back later, then Battlin Boxer Chief Second can negate an attack, summon himself from the hand with 2000 defense, and banish an opponent's monster for the turn. Tenpai who? Never heard of her. It's also a level 4 non-tuner, so you can use this to synchro summon Angelica in a pinch. And then you can get it back in your hand. Boxers are already a popular engine because Uppercutter is a 1-card path to Angelica, although it costs your battle phase of going second. Or it gets spell negation. I'm not a fan though because it's only useful going first, and compared to Flame Swordsman, you're giving up unmatched utility for a little more consistency in a deck that's already half Searcher. I tried really hard to strengthen Chief Second with an actual Boxer package, but these things are just not well designed. They barely synergize with each other. Just enjoy the attack negation. Returning subscribers know how much I love attack negation. Rewinding back to what Roland can search for. During the end phase, Table 3 dumps Roland. Roland searches for Richard. Use Char's equip effect. This is Char. Use it to equip some equip spell and then your desired fire warrior. This can lead into his trigger effect to destroy a card on the field when something is equipped. Destroy your warrior, and if you've got 6 knights, Noble Knights of the Round Table can summon Richard, who summons your warrior. For you firefighters, the Rescue Ace you summon can get a search, and then on the opponent's turn, you can tribute it for one of the big machines. For the rest of us, unfortunately, there are no low-level fire warriors with searches or disruption relevant outside of your main phase. So, why settle for a low-level fire monster? We're gonna have to make this combo even spicier. I'm talking basil spicy, maybe even oregano. We're gonna summon any level fire warrior. We're gonna summon a floodgate. Great Shogun SHIEN! You wanna focus? You wanna focus on him? Camera doesn't want to focus on him. It's too old. Nobody remembers this card exists. Oh, but he's not a knight, you say. He's a shogun. Well, I don't see the difference. I'm culturally insensitive. I don't let my opponents activate more than one spell card per turn. And if you combine this with Angelica's ring, then that one spell card will get negated. Your opponent is totally locked out. To set this up, at some point during your turn, use Ogier, Angelica, Foolish Burial, or whatever, to get Ika the Flame Buddy in your graveyard. During the end phase, table 3 will dump Roland. Roland will search for Richard, use Charles's effect to equip whatever spell, and then a Fire Warrior from the graveyard. Here he is. Come on, turkeys, I'm trying to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. We don't mate. We just play card games. And then, during the end phase, you can use the 6 effect to summon Richard from your hand, who will summon a Fire Warrior from the graveyard. When Ika is summoned, you can summon a monster from the back row, so now you've got your Shogun. Now, you won't be able to set up all of this off of just Angelica, particularly if you want to get Immortal Phoenix Gearfried in there too. It's going to depend on what you draw and how you get to her. It helps if you can use Ogier as your normal summon, sparing a dump that you can use on Ika, or if you draw any of these combo pieces. If you draw Great Shogun SHIEN, you can use Infernoble Arms Joyous to just directly summon him from the hand. Basically, he's a fun surprise for going second against spell-heavy strategies, and if you don't draw Shogun or enough ways to the combo pieces, no harm done. You can still go for your big Char setup. The Epic of Charles continues. If you've already drawn a museum or a way to search for one and you're going for Shogun, then you're not going to need the extra spell negate from a second Charles. You're not going to need a second museum. So instead, you can have Angelica search for the continuing Epic of Charles. This will play Richard out of your deck so that you can spare Roland's search for an angelic ring, and you won't need the 6 effect of the round table to summon Richard. So now you can equip Great Shogun SHIEN and Angelica's angelic ring. You can summon Richard, who will revive Ika, move up that Shogun, and now you've got the Shogun and the ring together. But this does require a spare Noble Arms, so this isn't perfect. We have to go deeper. I'm so tired. The Epic of Charles must continue until the Noble Arms are needed once again. As a Noble Arms card, this is far more searchable. It'll pull Richie out of the deck without costing an equip spell, if you can first move this card to the graveyard, because that's where it activates from. So, at any point during your turn, get this, you can set it face down, and then when you equip something at any point in the turn, you can have Charles destroy this, putting your trap card right into the graveyard. Then, during your opponent's draw phase, use it from the graveyard to summon Richard, to summon Ika. All you need to add this to your play is one spare Noble Arms search. And if you go for this Shogun setup, and that means you won't have enough gas to add Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, perhaps you can still keep the opponent's monsters in check if you've got Flame Sword traps, and you can use Captain Roland to equip to Charles at quick effect speed, triggering the pop. So there you go. Great Shogun SHIEN is a Noble Knight. As far as I can tell, I think I'm the only person who's been using the Ika combo, which is probably great news for your mental health. I've been at this for hours, and so have those turkeys. Here are some miscellaneous thoughts to finish on. Please let this video end. Every Infernoble Knight has a purpose, except for Captain Oliver, and you totally can get away with running one copy of all of them. There are so many searchers in this deck. You can also side the Noble Arms Haute Claire and our Feudatier for removal if you're going second, and if you're going first in overtime, Caliburn for an instant win, because Yu-Gi-Oh's time rules are absurd. The new Phoenix Gear Blade is a reusable equip spell that works with Gearfried better than the original Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. I've used this battle phase effect to deal over 30,000 damage in one turn, which is great if you're playing like a quadruple tag duel. I found both uses to be redundant in my Flame Swordsman build. Fire Flint Lady sees play as a searchable double summon, but I think she's ugly and she stinks, so I use Astolfo. They're pretty similar. Take your pick. If you know me, you know I heckin' love Revolution Synchron. This will get you to a Durandal search, or you can be cycling through your field spells, and then it will turn into Crystal Wing. It'll cost a level 4 monster though, which sometimes won't be compatible with your main play, and we already have Gearfried for monster negation. If you can find space for it and you have it, I highly recommend trying out Revolution Synchron, especially if you are using Camelot and Flame Swordsman. Ironically, Revolution Synchron cannot make Power Tool Braver Dragon an alternate level 9 to Emperor Charles. Here's an example of how Power Tool Braver Dragon grabbing 3 equip spells can help you to go full combo and provide defense for those times when you can't reach Angelica and when nothing else could have gotten you anything. In stark contrast to my Crystal Beast deck, the Noble Knight Extra deck has plenty of space for fixers like this. This is a deck which can survive off of only fire monsters, so if Apollo is still a thing, hey, Burning Draw. Draw 4, don't mind if I do. I also like using Instant Fusion in this deck, because we do have 2 targets for it, which can put combos together and kills, and that means you can also run Millenniumize Restrict. Stop those drolls. Also, Valence World! Yeah, I'm just gonna throw these into every video I make ever. Compared to the museum, Valence World won't get you a Noble Arms search, but it will still move up one of your monsters while taking out an opponent's field spell and one of their monsters, and it'll shut down counters like Impermanence. Nobody knows how to play around these things, and remember, confusing the ever-living hell out of your opponent is a valid way to win at Yu-Gi-Oh! I will not enjoy editing all of this. Give this video a like if you liked it, and then never ask me for anything else ever again. Unless you have like a suggestion for content that you want me to make, in which case, if you are unfortunate enough, I might just do it. Okay, I have to leave before the turkeys start giving me flirty glances. You know I'm cute enough for it. I know I'm cute enough for it. I wish Chaz Princeton would look at me the way those turkeys do. Such yearning in their eyes.